All right, beautiful humans, welcome back to another episode of Naked Sunday. I'm pretty hyped right now. Why? Because I have the lovely, the vibrant, the ecstatic, the highly energetic and lovely human being, also known as Kari Schwear. Am I saying the
That's
last
it.
name? I got it
Yeah.
right. It's swear without the with the sh. There we go. So I just mixed it up a little bit. Thank you for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here with you.
I'm excited to have you here as well. And a little something I like to do to start all of my episodes, whether you've listened to an episode or not, I like to tell all my guests why I appreciate them. Why? Because I think this world needs to have a little more of us telling each other why we love each other. I think that might solve some problems, at least a starting point. And you and I have known each other, what, 2 conversations, maybe, like a little bit of
Yes.
LinkedIn. And you have this, I love your story. I think that that's like your journey and your vulnerability and your candid nature about that and owning your story is really profound. Being that one of my strange obsessions in this life is vulnerability. I know that I crave honesty. I crave authenticity. And even all through the things you've been through and the life you've learned things through with the doing it all with a smile on your face, and like here you are just trying to spread a message and trying to help people. I find that really valuable. We need more leaders just like that. So I wanted to share that with you because I think you're a pretty awesome human being.
Thank you so much. You just made my day. I love that. And yeah, I don't hold anything back. I'm pretty transparent. It used to be, used to be the one that hid everything and kept me in the gray for way too long. But yeah, now I find it very healing when you can share your story. I mean, we all have a story.
We do. And I think not enough people give their story credit. I think that a lot of people think if it's not like the traditional hero's journey and it's been the most drastic overcome of X, Y, and Z, that it doesn't have the same value as somebody else, which I highly disagree with because that's your unique experience. And somebody else who's somewhere in between, I would even say, dare I say, the gray area, as I know that's kind of a thing with you, is like that's valuable too. And not everything is just this extremes and binary black and white kind of thing. So I'm excited to hear all about that. Obviously, I've got my Be Nice Human t-shirt on today. It's not my brand. I wish I had come up with that. I love it. And I've got my Happy Life mug going along at the same time. Also not my brand, but maybe one day I'll have to start making some apparel. But here we are now. First question of the day. You know yourself better than I do. Kari, who are you?
Oh gosh, that is, that's a really good question to ask somebody. I am a woman who has been through so much in my life and always thought of myself as a victim, that everything happened to me. And that was my excuse for all of my behavior. I wore that well. I just demanded so much attention. But who I am today is a result of all those things that I thought happened to me were really the perfect setup. I believe that we have blessings that are disguised as failures or things that are obstacles. And for me, when I look back on all the experiences that I've had in my life, I am just so grateful now to see how that was the perfect setup for me to do this work. And I did not seek this work out. It sought me. And I believe that that was truly a God calling on my life for me to be able to do what I do today and coach. And it is incredible. So who I am to the core is I believe that I am very much of a nurturing, intuitive woman who sees people and feels them and has the ability to help them see themselves in a way that they didn't know existed. And it shows their own inner genius and their own inner love that they've never seen before. And why? Because that was my journey. So that's pretty, I guess, a good summary of where I would think I am today.
I love that. And there is a reason why I asked that question, because I get a very beautiful and unique answer every single time, especially when nobody's ever listened to an episode and doesn't know that's coming. So like it's even better because there's no prep work. So I think that was fantastic. And I love that you landed on like the self-love piece. I know that's kind of I gotta stop saying kind of. It's really been annoying me lately. In the mainstream, which I think is a great thing, it's becoming part of the more prominent narrative or discussion. I would say would probably be a better word. The fact that that's out there, to me, speaks to that there's a lot of loneliness in the world, that we don't feel at home with ourselves. And then it's no surprise that we don't know how to get along with each other because we're already having internal friction. So that way you brought that to, I thought was really powerful. So let's see how we got there. Take me on the journey to where we got now. Where did this all start?
Oh yeah, the self-love piece is huge. I'll just say this really quickly that, our identity, who we believe we are, really does show up in our life. It shows up in our behaviors. It shows up in the way we view other people, for example. And we can hear the term self-love and just cough it off like, oh God, that's so woo, or it's so mushy, or, it's not manly enough. It's not strong enough. It makes you weak. And that's so far from the truth, because wherever you go, there you are. And you need to love yourself. And I never understood that. I thought, love myself. What? Like, how do you even do that? That was my biggest struggle. And so my journey really began as far back as I can remember. I mean, I was bullied quite a bit in school, in kindergarten when I was 5. But when I was 7, that was the turning point for me in so many ways. It was the year that I had so much revelation. And I remember thinking, I'm 7. I shouldn't even be thinking these thoughts. Like, this is just weird. And I remember being on my parents' driveway in St. Louis, Missouri on a very hot summer day and thinking, wow, is this all there is to life? Because if so, this kind of sucks. Like, I don't know if I want to be here, because the only time I really felt fulfilled or happy or loved or joyful or any of those beautiful things that we like to experience in life is when we were on a family vacation. And that only happened like every 2 years. And at this point, I'm like, I am 7. I really shouldn't even be thinking this. And I remember thinking that, like, how profound that was for me to be thinking this way. And I really disliked other kids. And I think it's because I was bullied so much. And so anyway, that was also the same year. It cracks me up to say this, but true story, that I declared to my mother that I would become a cigarette smoker. And
Oh my,
I
7?
stole, yeah, 7.
Oh
I
my God.
stole a cigarette from her best friend, Gladys, who lived directly behind us. And I was hanging out with my mom at Gladys's house, and Gladys smoked cool cigarettes. If you remember this back in first of all, this was in the 70s. So I'm way older than probably your listeners. But anyways, in the 70s and 80s, everyone smoked. And I saw this pack of cigarettes, cool. And I was like, hey, I want to be cool. So I took a cigarette. Everyone smoked pretty much back then. My parents didn't. No one in my family ever smoked, but I wanted to be cool. So I took one of her cigarettes and I took a match, and I went down we had a lake in our neighborhood, and I lit that bad boy up. And you think I would have hated it, but I didn't. And I went home. I just probably had a couple of puffs and outed it. And I ran home that day and I told my mom, I found her in the kitchen, and I declared to her, I'm going to be a cigarette smoker someday. And she said, no, you're not. And I said, no, yeah, I really am. So I declared that over my life. I made a decision. And this isn't a really important piece of what I teach, is in that moment, I made a decision. And when we make a decision about a belief, especially my core identity is I will be a cigarette smoker. And that became a reality. Now, did I start smoking at 7 on a regular basis? No, I did wait. I waited till I was a little bit older. I was 11 when I started smoking on a regular basis. I smoked half a pack a day at age 11. I was in 7th grade, 6th and 7th grade, around that time. And I continued to smoke. I actually smoked about a pack and a half by the time I was getting married to my husband in my early 20s. So I became a smoker. And that was my identity. It was part of my identity. The other part of my identity when I was younger was that I was a bad kid. And the reason why I was a bad kid is because I was bullied, then I was sexually abused, I was physically abused. I was beaten so badly in 7th and 8th grade that my parents didn't even recognize me when they got to me. So I took all this negativity that was going on in my life, and I was trying so hard to be appreciated and loved by others around me that I tried almost too hard to get attention, to get that appreciation, to get that nurturing love, to feel that safety. And as human beings, we require from two different types of relationships emotional safety, one from our parents and from a spouse or a significant other in our life. Those are the two most important types of relationships that we can have, that we really need to feel emotionally safe. And I did not feel that way. I love my parents dearly. I don't look back on the situation and say, wow, they weren't there for me. But the situation was that they divorced when I was 9. I went to 12 different schools in 9 years. I was shuffled around. Um, my Both my parents were going through a lot in their own life during that time. Looking back as an adult now and seeing them as adults then and seeing what they went through, I can see how it all happened. It wasn't their fault specifically. It was just the circumstances, but it wasn't healthy for me. And so because of that, I tried so hard, and all these things were happening to me. I even got arrested for smoking weed in 8th grade, sneaking out of my dad's house that, went to juvenile detention. It was like, you can't make this stuff up. It was crazy. Ended up moving across country with my mom. So all these things were going on. And the one thing that was a common thread through all of this was there was absolutely zero self-love or self-confidence. How could there be? I've already made the decision that I'm going to be a smoker. Now I've made the decision that I'm a victim. And that really became my guiding north. So words are so powerful. The things that we say about ourselves and to ourselves and what we believe really is driving our behavior. And so I made that decision, and really beliefs are decisions. So I already decided what I wanted to believe about myself. And so fast forward, now I'm married, I have kids. So now my identity changes. I'm now a mom, I'm a wife. At the time was working in the banking industry. Then I left to go into the food and beverage industry. And then I was working high-end jobs in the restaurant business. Had a great restaurants that I worked at, made really great money, but that wasn't enough, because then my identity was I'm a server and a bartender. I wanted to be something more prominent. So I became a food and beverage manager at a country club. Well, that felt better, but it was like one of the worst jobs ever. It was so stressful. I worked 75 hours a week. It was like I had no life. And that is when my drinking took off. And so now I thought, I'm a wine connoisseur. I'm a wine lover. I'm a wine snob, when really I was developing a habit with wine and a relationship with wine because it was fueling and filling me in ways that I could feel better about myself. And I couldn't seek the happiness with my husband, although he's amazing. I couldn't seek the happiness and fulfillment with being a mom and having my kids. It was not enough. And and this is all in my 30s, by the way, in my 30s, I looked the best I've ever looked, ever. Like, I was so in shape. I was the gym rat. I was fit. All the things. I still smoked, by the way, but other than that, I looked great. So, I thought, well, if I just get my body into shape, then I'll love myself. That wasn't enough. Nothing was enough. I just couldn't fulfill it. It took years of me figuring this out. And as I see the progression through my life, again, it's almost like a fairy tale story that I had to go through this I had to in order to get to this place that I'm at today. So yeah, that's basically I think I kind of went off the rabbit trail there a little bit, but
You
anyway.
didn't. No, it was very insightful. One, kind of wild that at 7, I'm going to make that statement. And I was also interested in her response. No, the hell you are. Something or other like that. While you were saying that, I had this like interesting dialogue. What would I do if my kid, I don't know, we don't have children yet. What would I do if my kid said that to me?
Mm-hmm.
And I am now curious, like, what would be the better way to respond to that? Because obviously just saying the hell you are didn't necessarily land the message for it, especially when I'm starting to when I'm hearing and considering all the other things. Like, if you didn't feel safe enough, the rejection of like, no, you're not, to whatever you're proclaiming your identity to be is like, whatever your identity you said you are, that ain't okay either. I even just had this conversation with my wife like 2 nights ago about like, so this thing that you're telling the girls, it was interesting you brought this up because 2 girls in her 5th grade classroom were having a spat with each other. Apparently it was over a boy, crazy enough. And she's like, women's empowerment like day or whatever it was, International Women's Day or whatever it was like yesterday or something like that. I can't remember the exact dates. And what she said was, you should be lifting each other up. Obviously her intention was like, girl, and both the girls were like, oh wow, yeah, like that's not cool. And they both reacted that way. What I challenged her with was, instead of telling them what they should be doing, what instead you asked them? It was Women's Empowerment or International Women's Day a couple days ago. How do you think your behavior right now is lifting each other up or embodying empowered women? And to my wife's credit, and I'm also giving myself a pat on the back here, because years ago I would not have approached the situation this way. So hashtag growth in a marriage right there. But I just saw the look on her face, like, that's a good idea. Because what I heard her, she was like, oh, our discussion wrapped around like, well, maybe in the immediate moment you get them to stop fighting. What I'm trying to bring to the table with that for her was, where's this going to go? How are they going to approach the next time there's a spat between them or their friends or their whomever it is, doesn't matter. Are they going to be hearing, don't do this, don't do that, this is bad, this is right, this is wrong? Or are they going to say, how does this move me towards my goal? Insert whatever blank Mad Lib kind of thing there, question mark. Because what I was really hoping for her to say is like, how are you planting the seed of curiosity? So I'm curious, hindsight 2020, in that space, what might have been a better way for your mother to approach that? For anybody who's a parent out there, I'm like, shit, I hope my 7-year-old doesn't come to me and say I'm proclaimed to be a smoker. What do you? I'm completely open. I'm just curious to see like how maybe you would have handled that differently from a place of like creating safety.
Yeah, you just brought up a whole segment of something that is so crucial, is that our brains before the age of 7, particularly before the age of 5, whatever is around us and what we hear is really becomes our truth for ourselves. Like, we believe what we're hearing. We're soaking this information in as truth. And so as new parents or parents that have young children, what you say externally becomes the truth for them internally. They then will take what they hear of the words that you're saying outwardly, and they are interpreting that into what they believe, into their lower subconscious, unconscious mind. And that becomes a belief for them. So let me give you an example. If you are around your parents before the age of 5 and they're arguing about money, and they're really in a heated discussion about this with money and that with money, and there's not enough, and da 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 da. There's so many things that can happen here. You can interpret that as a young child as money causes problems. Money is something that is always in lack and scarcity. And in turn, if you experience this another time, then now you're like, your brain says, hey, remember that conversation that you heard about your parents arguing about money? And here it is again. Oh, it must be true. And this is how we form beliefs or limiting beliefs. So let's say you form this as a limiting belief of like, well, money's bad. Money causes problems and there's never enough. So the never enough of money and the scarcity and the lack now becomes something that you live your whole life believing that you got to work really freaking hard to make money because it's always lack. There's always scarcity involved. And also money causes problems in relationships because you've now experienced this with your parents. So this is how beliefs get formed when we're very, very young. And so it's crucial for parents to be very aware of what they're saying in front of their kids, how they're saying it, because the interpretation that they're then receiving, what their brain is receiving, is going to be different in the context in which you want it to be, most likely. And that's a lot of times what happens. Now, to answer your question, I love that you said about curiosity, because when we come to anybody, it's not just our kids, but if we have a problem with someone or we have a difficulty, if we come from the place of, you know, let me make sure I heard you correctly. And there's an earning to understand rather than to formulate your own opinion. It's like, help me to understand what you meant by that. Repeating back, like, maybe a good answer to me at 7 could have been, oh my goodness, well, why would you want to be a smoker? What about that sounds appealing to you? And like, where did you get that from? I might have been asking more curious type questions of, why would you say that? And what is appealing about it? And who do you know that smokes that you want to be like? And, what about it in general appeals to you? I might have asked some of those questions looking back on it now. But I think if we come from a place always with any situation of wanting to really, really know and understand, I think that's very, very important.
I really appreciate that breakdown. And I was that before 7 window. And please correct me if this is not accurate. Somebody told me, maybe they were a therapist or their coach. I can't remember exactly who it was. Maybe I was just watching a video somewhere, said that before 7, the human brain is in theta state, which is apparently also the state for hypnosis. So we had a brief pause there for sound intermission in the ether, but I was talking about theta state and how apparently that's the brain wave space that is also hypnosis. I start hearing that and I go, well, that's a surefire way to like brainwash somebody. So more or less, with intention or not is interesting to me. Like, which to me, with that said, it was especially with a very young, influential mind that is highly susceptible to any suggestion because it doesn't know any better, doesn't have experience to base that off and push back on how you're bringing to the table that it's imperative that you're very conscious about the words you're using. And then the secondary thought I had to that was where I'm at now in my life, where I see a lot of adults just act like children because they're just replaying their childhood traumas over and over again, however we want to describe that. People who are in scarcity are afraid of also being rejected, of like, well, if my kid does this bad thing, well, I'm actually a bad parent, as opposed to, let's slow down. The kid's just curious. It's not a statement about me. It's a kid. They literally don't know any better. And I don't know what's going on. I need to be okay with saying, I don't know. And asking a question to me, and I've said this a few times and hashtag Insta famous quotes for myself, is the greatest sign of confidence is to ask a question. So I think what you brought up there, while you changed it and you brought out curiosity, I think that's really powerful because it forces somebody to zoom out and say, what's the objective of this one engagement right here? Not just for now, like I said before, like my wife and the two students, like, where is this going for the future? What if you're not there to intervene? How will they self-correct for themselves in a way that's healthy for them. And another thing you brought up in there that was, to me, really interesting, you brought up victim mindset, victim identity a few times. And in there, while you were going through your path, you said, I said, all these things are happening to me while you're in it, happening to me. And I heard the other times where you've come out of it and you look back on these things are blessings. These things happened for me. All I heard was gratitude. I heard you looking at the same scenarios as, well, these are the lessons and the stories that set me up for this position. And I thought that was really beautiful because in that I hear acceptance, and also I hear like an unburdening in that acceptance. Like these things you're choosing how they will define your future as opposed to just being carried and burdened by your past, which I thought that was really cool how you brought that up.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, when I think back about my upbringing and the back and forth and the no stability. I mean, I really had no stability whatsoever. And I think that's what really defined my personality and who I am today, honestly. So there's that. But I also think back to so many beautiful things that did happen during that time, which is what propelled me to keep forward. One of them was having a very early on belief in God, where my sister never believed in God. And ironically, she's the one who ended up going off to college and coming back a born again Christian saying, I'm taking you to church and you're going to be saved. And I'm like, I don't even know what that means, but okay. So, things like that, or, me getting kicked out of the only public school that I could possibly go to when I moved from St. Louis to Pennsylvania in ninth grade, my 11th school at that point. And my mom said, I don't know what I'm supposed to do with you because there's only one other school that you could possibly go to. And it's a Catholic private school. We're not Catholic. And I'm going to have to pay all this money. And because I basically left that first ninth grade. I sort of got kicked out. And it was over a teacher saying his last name and not Mr. in front of it. And he ended up picking me up and throwing me against the lockers by my throat. And then pushed me back into the classroom and slapped the back of my head in front of all the students. And I basically told him to F off. I did. I said, F you and F off. And so I got kicked out. So my mom put me in, still I was a bad kid. And I ended up going to this Catholic school. And so this all happened halfway through the school year. So that incident with the teacher, I think, happened in November. And then January, right after the break, is when I went to the school. And you got to picture this. Okay. All right. So it's a Catholic high school. The ninth grade was by itself in its own building. And then 10th, 11th, and 12th grade was in the main building. And so when I went to the ninth grade, it was just the ninth grade students. Thank God, right? Because it would have been so much worse if it was all these other kids. But it was just the ninth grade. And they're all in uniform because it's a Catholic school. I don't have a uniform yet. So I show up in my first day of school, my 12th school, with corduroys on and a white shirt and a sweater vest. Now, the sweater vest was part of the uniform, but not the corduroys. Every other girl had on a skirt. So I stood out like a pink donkey at a rodeo show. I mean, it was terrible, but I was used to it. I mean, I was always the new kid. So here I am again. And I'm like, one more school, one more chance to screw it up, one more everything. Like, this is just going to suck. My first 2 hours, I had probably 5 or 6 girls come up to me and say, oh, you must be the new girl. I'm so-and-so. And this brings me to tears, by the way, obviously. Would you like to sit with us at lunch? Oh my God, I can't believe I'm crying. I never experienced kindness. I was seen, I was heard, and I was accepted. And those girls to this day, I credit. That school changed my life. The kindness that those kids showed me changed my life. And I wrote a blog post 2 years ago called Pitiful to Powerful. Actually, it might have been, yeah, it is 2 years ago now. Wow. 2 years ago. And that blog post really talks about kind of a little bit of summary of my childhood, not total details, but I do mention the school and these girls and how much this changed the trajectory of my life in a positive direction. So things like that, I'm so grateful for because I was never shown I was never shown kindness or acceptance ever. And that's all I was searching for. And so, while that was good, I made some other bad choices, like dating a guy 6 years older than me who was very controlling, very abusive in every way, sexually abusive to me, physically abusive to me, and extremely verbally abusive to me. So much so that he kept me out of participating in any high school activities. So I did graduate. My mom, I asked her to please let me graduate from the school. Like, it was the only school I went 2 years or more in a row. So I said, can I please graduate from the school? Will you do everything you can to make sure I don't switch schools again, ever again? And she said, yes. And she kept that promise, and she worked really hard to pay tuition for me to go to this private school, which I'm so grateful for. And, but I didn't get to do any of the high school stuff. My boyfriend wouldn't let me do it. And I chose to date him because he acted like a father figure to me, because I didn't have a father figure at that time. My dad was in a different state, he was going through his own stuff. And so, I was drawn to this person because he was older and he was authoritative with me, abusive in many ways, in every way. And I thought that was normal. I was used to that. I was already abused so many times at that point that I just thought that was normal. So yeah, I was not expecting to go down that that part of my story, but there must be a reason why I was led to share it. Maybe somebody needed to hear it. But I think it's important that we teach our kids the importance about being kind. So like even your shirt, be a nice human. It is true. The kindness and the words that we speak and how we treat others is so vitally crucial and important. Our words hold so much power, so much power. We can either build somebody up or we can tear them down just by the words that we speak.
Before I say anything else, I want to just say thank you for trusting me enough to be vulnerable enough and sharing that. But clearly, like you said, it kind of came out of nowhere for you, and that meant a lot to me. So like I started off this whole podcast, one of the things I admired about you from our very first conversation was your vulnerability. And I think in this world right now, we have a perverse view on the word vulnerable, and we think of it as weak. And
yes,
I distinctly believe the opposite.
Yeah.
People are welcome to disagree with me on that one, but I'll take that one to my grave. I'll die on that mountain, if you will. And the reason I say this, it's like the acceptance. It's about looking at the darkness and saying, like, here it is. I'm okay with it. And if you say it first, it's out there. And ironically, I think it actually puts you in the leadership role, and you get to dictate the rest of the relationship, wherever it's going to go. I think it takes a lot of courage to get over that step. So the undercurrent to what you just did, I thought was very powerful and profound. And even your final statement around, I don't know why this came up, but maybe somebody needed to hear that. Whether it's a guy, a girl, somebody going through their, maybe there's plenty of kids who were bullied in one way, shape, or
there's
form.
so many kids that are bullied. I
Yeah.
want to interject something here because I think it's important, is that everything that I coach on and believe in is if we shine a light on the darkest parts of us, that is when healing happens. And vulnerability is one of those areas that is not comfortable. When I got into this business and this work, like I said, I didn't seek it, it sought me. And I remember the quick story, the very quick version is I worked with a coach after I quit drinking. I went to AA, it wasn't a good fit. I ended up working with a coach and he planted 3 seeds. He said, Kari, you're going to be a coach someday. You're going to start your own business and you're going to share your story with the world. And I said, oh, no, no, and hell no, will that ever happen? Because I was so in tune about faking it. Because my whole life had been about getting acceptance and not really being seen and hiding behind this mask that I was hurting. I was always like trying to project that I was the tough kid, that I was the badass kid, that I was I was always trying to be somebody I wasn't. And for him to say, you're going to share your story with the world meant that I was going to be exposing parts of me that I didn't want anybody to know. I would never tell anybody what I just told you. Matter of fact, when I wrote that blog post, I mentioned Pitiful to Powerful, I literally cried writing the whole thing. And I came out and I told my husband, I said, I just wrote this blog post and I really don't think I should publish it. And he said, read it to me. And I read it and I'm crying, like sobbing tears, like ugly cries. Right. And he said, you absolutely need to publish this because it's going to help someone, Kari, like it's so healing for you and you're going to do it. And he was right. And I believe that, like you said, when we get vulnerable and we shine a light on those deepest, darkest crevices that need to come out, is when we become free, is when we can start really, really living into our truth. And then when we do look at ourselves in the mirror, we actually start to like the person that's staring back versus, repelling that person. I couldn't even record myself on a video just 5 years ago. There was no way I could go live on Facebook. What? Like that would never happen. Never in a million years. Now I speak publicly. I'm always doing videos. I'm always putting myself out there. I've broken through that barrier of trying to hide the worst parts of me. There are some still hidden things I have not yet shared, and I don't know if I will, maybe someday I will, that are very deeply hurtful and rooted. And perhaps I will share. But for right now, I've openly given myself about 95% of me to others. And I do it in a way that isn't to say, oh, look at me and all the things that happened to me. I do it as a way for people to see that it's okay, because we all got something, we all got junk in the trunk that nobody wants us to find out about. And when we just say, well, here it is, now what are you going to do with it? You can't hurt me anymore because here it is. I'm giving it to you. You don't have to seek it and try to find it on your own. I'm already giving it to you. There's nothing for you to steal from me, which makes us super strong when we get to that point, when we have that deep level of vulnerability. I become the power. I become the one in control. And that's the beautiful thing about being okay with not being okay.
It's this paradoxical nature of, by giving up control, you actually gain control. It doesn't make sense on the surface, but underneath, it's really a lot there. I love that reflection. For the record, Naked Sunday is founded on the very premise of, well, naked is vulnerable. And when you're naked with things, until you really go there and look at as you said, the man in the mirror, how else do you know how to address, quote unquote, the problems? If you don't see them, if you don't look at them, you don't even know where to start. You're just throwing darts at a board. And maybe you'll hit a little bit, but you're not going to see the whole picture. And I think that's really deep. I wanted to take it back to what those girls did when we start thinking about what happened there. and especially naked or vulnerable. What I heard is, hey, you must be the new girl. It's that same sense of like, we're going to address the elephant in the room. Mm-hmm. Not comfortable, but I'm just going to acknowledge the fact that, okay, this is the thing. No judgment. It is what it is. But what we had just talked about before about a question. Hey, I'm identifying this. Would you like to come and sit with us? It was an invitation. It was an open hand, as opposed to you're going to come sit with us, or you're going to sit over here, or whatever, however you're going to think about mandating something. That's why I have certain feelings about mandates. But when you ask a question and you open that, especially if you're willing to just confront whatever it is, the thing, the elephant in the room, there's a confidence behind that. And then when you follow it with a question of saying like, I'm here over here, there's a calmness, and there's a peace, and it's a taking a step back that says like, cool, like, here, would you like to come with me? Not to me, come with me. And I think that was, if nothing else is taken from this interview today, I hope that really small juncture in your life can get passed forward. Because I was tearing up, just so you know, and I like to cry. I'm like, fuck it, let's roll. My wife makes fun of me all the time, like I'm the chick in this relationship, and I'm like, I don't care, like, let's do this. Like, I cry in the shower sometimes. This is just an aside, just to mostly poke fun at myself right now. So, because you were vulnerable, so damn it, I feel obligated to be a little vulnerable. Do you know the song Skinny Love?
No.
Oh my God. So there's the, God, I can't think of her name right now.
I'm so bad with like names and bands and like songs and movies and actors. Like, I'm so not good at that, but.
Well, I've got your number, so I'm going to text you the song.
Okay.
I listen, my favorite version is the Bon Iver cover of it. The other one is very good. I mean, it's like hauntingly beautiful. And an ex-girlfriend, ironically, turned me onto the song, and she also sent me another thing that was like, that still like sticks with me as like a lesson through life. But my wife always will tease me. She's like, you're clearly going through something, you're all up in your feels when I hear that song come on. I love it. And she almost posted a video of me like a couple of weeks ago when your husband is going through something, and I'm just playing that song while I'm just taking a hot shower, and she's just sitting on the couch laughing at me. Little did I know this was going on. So anyway, there's some stuff if anybody ever wants to use it again. Oh, Caleb, you're feeling sensitive right now.
Yes, whatever. I love it. And you know what? Music will do that. Music will set the tone. It sets, like, it draws out feeling. And that's part of the thing, is when our thoughts, whatever it is we're thinking about, if we attach a feeling to it, it becomes almost stamped into our nervous system, where it's like a memory recall. This is how memories happen, by the way, and sometimes not good ones. But we can rewire some of those old thoughts and those old thinkings by changing the way that we feel and believing what we want to feel. This is why visualization is really good for us. But it's funny because you associated, even you have a story that's attached to this song, becomes part of a memory for you. And when we do that, especially when there's music, because how many times have you heard a song, like a high school song, and you hear it again for the first time in many years, and it takes you right back to that same situation or experience that you were having when you heard that song from the very get-go. And it reminds you of the summer or the, whatever. We have these associations. So I love that. I love that you, and I want to hear the song now so I can know.
It's beautiful. I could listen to like 94 different covers of this song. Like I'm that weird guy. I play the same song for hours. When I had the gym, everybody knew, oh, Caleb's coaching this class today because it's the same damn playlist and it's the same 5 songs over and over again, but you could just set your timer to it. My best friend, he and I used to train together, and it was like, here's this playlist. And it always started with the song Closer by Kings of Leon.
Oh yeah.
It's like, wah, 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 wah. And it was just like, you're going to go work out, and it's just this chill, slow, like ramp up. But like, I could, as you said it, I don't even know why I'm going on this tangent here, but it was like, at this moment, boom, my body would feel this way. And at this moment, boom, my body would feel this way. And boom, now my mind is ready. But if it wasn't, it also was cues for me to say like, whoa, something else is off.
Yes.
What else do we need to address? And where I'm now going to take this is, have you ever heard the quote or the line, you feel the rhythm when you're happy, but you understand the lyrics when you're sad, for a song? Have you ever heard that?
Yeah. Yeah, I have.
But it was what you were just saying here. You can rewire your meaning around that, and like
Oh,
you'll
absolutely.
associate a different feeling. And I think actually to experience the same, I'm going to call it the same stimulus in both environments, I think is really important. I was just talking to a guy yesterday. He's going to come on the podcast soon, and there's a quote that I'm going to bring from him in a second. But I shared with him this understanding that a friend of mine told me about. Is like, so many people are trying to read so many books all the time. It's like, I got to catch up and read this book and that book and da, 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 da. And I said, I learned this from a friend of mine. It's like, how about you just read the same book over and over again? Because it's not that the book is going to change or the words are going to change, but you are going to arrive as a different person to that information every time. And you're going to glean something different, whether you're coming with a different mood, a different feeling, or you're just more mature and you're capable of understanding and encapsulating and contextualizing that information a little bit more. That's just another aside. The final thing I wanted to bring from this, his name is Dr. Rob Bell. I listened to one of his podcasts and I heard this quote from him. It's like, your why makes you cry. And you sharing that really emotional thing. I don't know how many times you said that story about those girls in, what you said, ninth grade. And I don't know how many times you said it, but like the fact that it brought you there that quickly, and to my knowledge, like it came out of nowhere for you, that connected with me. That really did. It was like, whoa, that like brought me to like, oh, that moment there, that's what it all turned. Oh, that feeling perhaps in your journey or with your work, because I want you to be able to share about that as well. Like that drives it. That's it.
Yeah.
To bring that feeling to people, to be like, oh, I get it. I can turn, I can feel, I can be accepted either by other people or just by myself. Probably focus more on just accepting yourself first, but other people are capable of love and kindness as well. So I've talked for a bit. Shut me up for a little while because I could keep going.
Well, thank you. Honestly, I don't think I've ever shared that story before. I've done quite a few interviews and I don't think I've ever shared that story. I've written about it that one time, but I've never talked about it. And I think that's probably why it gets me. I will say that another story that brings the same sort of emotion is my aha moment for my drinking, which really was a pivotal point also in my life. So now, fast forward, I'm in my 40s. I moved from Pennsylvania to Richmond, Virginia with my husband, uprooted the kids, all the things, switched jobs again, same career. Now this time by this point, I'm in the medical field and I've moved to Richmond. Very stressful. My drinking really continues. I'm drinking like at least 1 to 2 glasses of wine almost every night. And then sometimes more on the weekends. Certainly there'd be opportunity to drink more, but it was a pretty steady thing. I would call myself abusing alcohol, but not severely. So it got to a point where in 2016, it was 4th of July and I was drinking all day at my friend's house. Started with vodka and lemonade, turned to wine, followed by shots of something called tuaca, which really was delicious, from what I remember. And it was one of those nights and days. It was a Monday that year, 2016. And we really were drinking all day. So by 10 o'clock at night, I'm hammered and I'm getting in the pool with my bra and underwear on because I just didn't care. And then, of course, getting out of my wet bra and underwear in front of all my friends and putting on my clothes and totally embarrassing myself. So we stumbled back into the house and my 23-year-old son, who was 23 at the time, was in the kitchen. And I walked in and he said, "Oh my God, you are trashed. How much did you drink tonight, Mom?" And so I said some things back to him and I went to bed. And I got up and I went to work the next day, of course, hungover and feeling like crap and whatever. I get through the day and I come home. It's now Tuesday and we make dinner, and he was living with us. He was just out of college. And so he says to me, "How'd you do at work today?" I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He goes, "Well, you were trashed last night. So how'd you do at work? You feel like crap? Were you doing okay today? How'd you perform?" I'm like, "What's with all the questions, dude? Like, back off." He goes, "Do you remember what you said to me last night?" And my husband kicked him under the table and said, "Nathan, do not talk to your mother that way and do not tell her what she said." He goes, "Oh, I'm telling her." And he repeated what I'd said. And I will say that it's just nothing that a mom would ever say to their child, ever. A lot of FUs, a lot of shut the F up, and, who do you think you are? And so he repeated it all to me. And as he's talking to me, I'm just sitting there not eating, and I'm filling up with tears. And I looked at him, streaming tears by this point, and I said, "That will never happen again. This is the wake up call that I needed, and I will do something about it." So 6 weeks pass. I'm contemplating. I went to see a substance abuse counselor, and she did the AA test, a standard test that all addictive behaviors counselors and therapists will give you. And if you answer out of 11 questions, if you answer, I think it's like more than 5, then you're considered to be an alcoholic. I forgot what the number is now, to be honest with you. It might be 7 out of 11 or something like that. And I was right on I was, of course, answered that number. And she was like, "Yep, you're an alcoholic." And I said, "Well, I'm not willing to accept that." And she said, "Well, that's denial. And you're going to have to get, basically part of the first step of the 12-step program is that you need to understand that you're powerless over alcohol." And I'm like, "Oh, well, that for sure. I'm definitely not going to say yes to that. Like, no way." "Well, you need to go to AA. This is how society has really dictated to us. Either you're an alcoholic or you're not. And if you are, you go to AA. That's the answer." So I resisted. 6 weeks pass. It's now August 14th. Well, the 13th and the 14th, that was the weekend that year. And the Olympics were on. And I had contemplated going to AA, knew nothing about AA. So, like all things I do, when I don't know something, I'll research it. So I'm researching, what does an AA meeting look like? Where do I even go for an AA meeting? Who's it really for? All the things. I actually was listening to a priest that I found online, Father Martin, so ironic, talking about AA and the 12 steps. Now you got to picture this. It's Sunday night at 8:00. The Olympics are on. My husband's watching TV. I have my headphones on, connected to my laptop, on my laptop in the living room, drinking wine, watching Father Martin talk about the AA program. My husband goes to bed. I'm like, hallelujah. Now he doesn't have to be giving me the devil stare because I'm drinking wine. And I finish a whole bottle from 8 to midnight. And I decided midnight is a good time to open up a second bottle. So I start drinking the second bottle, knowing that this is going to be the last time I drink. Like, it was almost like, you start a diet and you're like, screw it. You're just going to eat the whole damn cake, because why not? So I drink like half of the second bottle, and I'm pretty well toast. And I actually just yesterday on my social, I posted a post about this particular evening and what I'm about to share. Is I walk into the downstairs bathroom before I go to sleep, and I look in the mirror. Oh my God, Caleb. And I literally never saw anything more ugly in my life than me. And I started berating myself for 10 minutes. I just stared at my eyes, like I talk about mirror work today. I was doing my own self-beration. Is that even a word? I don't know, but I was doing my own judgment on myself for 10 minutes, looking at myself in the eyes. And I hated that person. I hate you. You're a piece of, what, a lot of F-bombs, just a lot of things that you would just, if you had someone that you absolutely hated in your life, like everything you want to say to them is what I was saying to myself. And I'm crying tears and I'm puffy and I'm just so unhealthy and I just look like crap. And so I go to bed and I wake up the next morning. I'm like, okay, that's it. I'm going to go to AA. And so I did. I went to AA. I went religiously. No pun intended. I got a sponsor. I read the big book. I did the 12 steps and I was like, loved the program for the consistency that it provided. I loved the program for some tips and tools that it provided, but I did not resonate with being an alcoholic. And I knew from some self-development work up to that point that I knew whatever I say I am after becomes my guiding north and my truth for the rest of my life, unless I change it. And so I had a huge problem with saying hi, I'm Kari and I'm an alcoholic. So I left the program and I started working with a coach, which I mentioned earlier. Fast forward, I was going to start something at my church. It didn't work out. I'm listening to a podcast. I hear a guest talk about her drinking story. And she says, I was a gray area drinker. My ears perked. And I was like, gray area drinking. So she describes what a gray area drinker is, which was my story. And all of a sudden it clicked. I was abusing, but I wasn't severely abusing to the point where it's taking over my life. It was causing some issues like my son, it was a holiday, that sort of thing. I did have some, situations like that where that was like my enough. That's the night I say it was my enough. But I never saw myself as this abusive person who was using alcohol in the way that would be considered severely abusing. Now, the term alcoholism is being replaced with alcohol abuse disorder. And there are 3 categories: mild, medium, severe. And so a gray area drinker is somebody who falls in that mild into medium categories of alcohol abuse disorder. So when I started realizing that this is who I was and where I was, it was like this epiphany and this light bulb went off that I need to share what gray area drinking is with every single person I can get my hands on. Because if I would have heard that term 5 years earlier, I would have identified with it and I would have raised my hand and started implementing some things to make some small changes that could lead to big changes. And so that is truly how and why I became a coach. And over the period of my coaching, which is, I'm coming on my 4th year, which is so crazy, is that I realized that people don't drink just because they like it, right? We drink because we're either escaping a feeling or chasing a feeling, which has been my entire freaking life. I've always been running from a feeling. I never wanted to sit with the feeling. It hurt too bad. And nobody wants to sit in their crap. No one does. And so that was my way of finding what I thought was self-love for me, was to just be numb to it. And when I realized that this was my truth and I started doing the healing process, and by this point, I'm alcohol free for 2 years, right? So 2 years had passed. I hadn't been drinking but I still, I was still learning like how to love myself. And when I thought, well, I'm going to start a business where I can become a coach, a certified life coach, and motivational interviewing, which started with addiction and NLP and all the things, hashtag all the things. I love them. But it's true. Putting all these into play and into practice made me realize that now I could see the truth. And people that come to me, it wasn't so much about their drinking. It was so much more about these other gray areas in their life. And the gray areas didn't just apply to drinking. It applies to our career, to our marriage, about how we feel about ourselves, our relationships, our kids, how we feel about God, our spirituality, whatever it is. We have these gray areas, and it's these gray areas that keep us feeling stuck, or the term, I'm fine. Fine really is a 4-letter word. Nobody needs to be fine. We need to be better than fine. We're meant for greatness. We're meant for abundance. We're meant to be and have everything that we want, but we don't know how to get there I never knew how to get there. I was searching my entire life for that. And I found it. And and again, it found me, honestly. Like I said, it's crazy how it all happened, but it literally found me. And that's exactly what should have happened. It's exactly the way it was meant to be. Why? Because that's how it happened. Life is always working for us. We don't have to try so hard. If we surrender and stop clenching our fists and trying to control everything and know that there's something bigger and greater than us that is in control. And if we lean into it and we align ourselves congruently with the things that we do want, oh my gosh, and we move into gratitude, you just opened up a line of credit where everything's going to come for you. And that's exactly how it works.
I just want to tell you, you've brought a lot of joy to my day.
Oh, thank you.
I love your message. I have a lot of thoughts, but I don't know if just my interjections is just me filling the void. Like, I think people need to sit with what you just said. And the only thought that I think might be most prudent to add on to it is something you brought out there of fine. And ironically, we were having a little conversation beforehand about stuff, and we won't go into all of it, but we talked about that when the words are like, I'm good or I'm fine, that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And when I consider what does it mean to be human, let alone a good human, you brought out this moment in there in your story where is that you were using this, let's just call it a tool, alcohol. Let's call it a thing. And side note, being powerless to a thing, I think, brings its own bucket of problems. So I appreciated you bringing that to the forefront. So that's where I stand on the isms. But you said my way of avoiding a feeling was to just numb it. And what I think is deeply tragic across humanity right now is that so many people, and I've been there myself in my own shapes and forms, whether it was out exercise or name your thing, was that people are just trying to go numb. And if instead what I'm hearing in you is that this process, maybe coaching is this, it's this allowing space to give somebody themselves the permission, because so many people are just looking for permission, the permission to feel whatever that might be, negative or positive, whatever it is, but feel it. Let's deal with the feeling first. And for anybody who's ever concerned about anything, you buy with your emotions, you buy with your feelings. Feelings are an important part of the human construct. To deny ourselves that ability, I would go so far as to say, is inhumane. And I could see where that would take us to a place where we don't like what we see in the mirror, because I'm not even allowing myself to just be me, the darkness and all. So that's what came out in there. And the only other thought I have to it is the way you've looked back. And again, like seeing beauty in your darkness. I've said this before. It's like when you look at life in reverse, it all makes sense. But we're only looking forward, or we're only in the moment. I can say most people are just afraid of the future, or afraid of right now, or hating whatever they're feeling right now, and just carrying their baggage. And as an aside, this is something I suggest with a lot of people, is when you're going through what I like to call a growth time, not a bad time, is if you just ask yourself, what is this teaching me? For me personally, as a tool, that's allowed me to zoom out, time travel to the future, and then look back on this current moment in a very similar lens as what you just talked about, looking back on your life with this gratitude and this freedom that it sounds like you've garnered from that. It might be able to take that edge off in a healthier way, as opposed to, ripping a ciggy or ripping a shot, whatever, something along those lines. Um, of course, as I said, I'm trying not to talk too much. I go off and give two stories. So my apologies for interjecting my own thoughts again. But I really appreciated your take on all of that. And I love how you took it beyond just alcohol. So many people are living in these gray areas, which perhaps another way of saying like living in uncertainty. You're not one side or the other. The dogma, the binary, good or bad, bad or evil, like, or good or evil, that kind of, whatever that means. There's this permission to be somewhere in the middle and not be defined by either side. And I thought that was really cool. So take us to where we are now and like how you're helping people. Take us a little bit briefly through what you do with your organization, and also, of course, make sure you share the name of your organization so they know how to find you.
Oh yeah. Well, it's appropriately named GrayTonic, which is so funny how that all came to be. When I quit drinking, I loved tonic water. So and I went back to the gym working out. So I had a shirt that said gym and tonic. And when I was trying to come up with the name for the business, I was like, well, gray, I wanted gray in the title because I coach on the gray areas. Right. So I was like, gray and tonic. And I was like, well, that's kind of dumb. No one's going to put like and in the browser, like gray and tonic. So I just put GrayTonic and I was like, well, that's kind of catchy. And then, so I had some people say it sounds like a dirty drink company, or I don't understand what that is, but now everyone likes it because once they understand why it was called GrayTonic. So tonic in itself is a medicinal drink. We all know that. Not just a mixer for gin, but it is a medicinal drink. But more importantly, it means invigorate. It means strengthener, pick me up, boost. It means energize, right? So it has all these beautiful words or meaning to the word. So I am the tonic to someone who's in the gray, and that's how I look at it. And it's a way to get yourself out of those gray areas. So that is the name of the business. So I work with a lot of high performers, a lot of business owners, CEOs, and for my one-on-one clients. And they typically will seek me out because they check all the box of success. And honestly, that's where I found myself towards the end of my drinking and moving into wanting coaching was from the outside world, Caleb, is that most people would say, wow, she's got it going on, lives in a nice house, drives a nice car, lives in a great neighborhood, been married a very long time, has two beautiful kids, blah, blah, blah. I didn't feel that way. I was so unhappy. My husband and I did very well for ourselves, and we reached a level of success and we were both very happy about it, but it wasn't fulfilling. And that was part of being in this gray area as well. And I realized that my message was attracting people just like me. Go figure. We are our own ideal client. And they were very much in tune with my message. So I really have the privilege of working with really awesome men and women. And then I have a group coaching program called Question the Drink. And that's really focused more on your relationship with alcohol and with yourself. So it's basically my 6-month coaching program distilled down to 30 days in a group setting. So it's pretty slam packed with information, and it's more about self-development and, oh yes, loving yourself, as opposed to it is just learning how to have a better relationship with alcohol, right? So it's so much more about the self-development piece and understanding how your brain is wired. I'm an expert on habit disruption. That's where I really specialize in, because our habits dictate everything for us. What we do on a daily basis. John Maxwell has some of the best quotes ever. And one of them is, you show me your daily habits and I'll show you the success of your life. I kind of paraphrase there. It's not exactly how it goes, but very close. But it is true. Our daily habits dictate who we are. We can see it just by what we do. I mean, you look at somebody who's really fit and ripped, and they're not eating bonbons and donuts every day, right? They're hitting it at the gym. They're doing their water intake. They're taking care of themselves. It's pretty obvious what their routine is. So we can see that we show up the way that we show up in life is we can look at someone and say, they're really taking care of themselves. I'm a big believer of fill your bucket first. we got to fuel ourselves as part of the self journey. And a lot of people skip that. They don't got time to take care of themselves in the morning. They got to get the kids off to school. They got to get to work. They got, blah, blah, blah. Or they're a slave to their phone and electronics, and they give their first attention to all that stuff, which sets up their whole day for a miserable day, because now you just given all your power to the electronic as opposed to yourself, when you need to fill yourself first. So the group program is really hyper focused on, let's establish really good habits. Let's establish really good how you feel about yourself. And how we do that is through my methodologies. And, oh yes, you'll learn how to say no to drinking, right? Because you're not going to want it. And we kind of go through that whole program. So that is my 2 ways to work with me, is one-on-one or in the group.
I love that.
Yeah. And it's called Question the Drink, by the way. And it's called Question the Drink, not Quit the Drink. Because why? When I left AA, I was like, I'm not going to be like, you can't have. Nobody wants to hear they can't have anything. With my clients, it's a choice to drink. It is a choice for you. And when you have this empowerment, it's like parenting, like what we talked about earlier. It's the way that I deliver something. It's about uplifting and empowering and giving the client the control. And if they know it is a choice and I'm there to support them, I'm the bumpers in a bowling alley. Like when you go bowling for the alley and the bumper guards come up, like I'm the bumper. I'm there to just guide you and push you back into the center. But it's your choice. It's your choice. And I believe when we have choices, we're going to make the right decision, especially if the reward is there. We got to have the reward. So, and that's what I tease them with, the reward the whole time. So, and the reward is ultimately liking the reflection in the mirror.
There's so many just good things in all of that. And I'm going to really do a good job this time of not going on my own tangent. So I think it's really powerful what you're sharing. How could somebody, if they're like, wow, I need somebody who's willing to be vulnerable. I need somebody who's got this kind of strength, who's been where I've been. And I just like her vibe. I mean, we've sat here for what, an hour and a half now, somewhere around there. Like, Kari's got it. I need to move in that direction. I need to be around people who are looking to be more empowered, uplifted, and use more like this openness and this questioning as a platform, as opposed to the rigidity and the pushing down in my life. What's the best way for somebody to get in touch with you and contact you and connect?
Oh gosh. Well, first of all, I'm so proactive on social media. Believe it or not, my least favorite platform is Instagram, because I just have a hard time with Instagram. I'm on it. And so you can find me there. But really, GrayTonic is my website. By the way, Gray is spelled AYGRAY, GrayTonic. And then Question the Drink. GrayAreaDrinking.com is my other website. I have 2 sites. And send me a DM. Send me a DM on Insta. LinkedIn. I'm huge on LinkedIn. That's where I spend a lot of my time. Just under Kari Schwear. I'm the only Kari Schwear on social, so I'm like so easy to find. But if you send me a message, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever, you will hear back from me. I love being contacted. Matter of fact, I co-authored a book, one of many co-authors, I should say. And it's been out for a year and a half, I guess. And just the other day, I had a gentleman out of the blue send me a message on Facebook. And he said, hey, I just want you to know that your chapter that you wrote in this book, which was all about a methodology that I teach, really was so engaging. And you literally changed everything for me. And I just want you to know how much you've impacted me. I can't begin to tell you. When I get messages like that, I'm over the moon. So bring it on. Bring it on. You got questions or you want some help, you just reach out. You'll hear from me.
Well, I believe you've already sent all your
I did.
links and all those things. So we're going to have all those for anybody who's listening and you didn't remember all those things. The place to get in contact, aside from just go to Instagram, right? All that stuff's going to be in the show notes. Please make sure you go reach out to Kari and get the help and the self-love. The act of self-love is starting with just asking for help. I think that's really powerful.
Yeah.
Make sure you reach out. I've said it to start this. I've said it a few times in the middle. I'm just really grateful for being able to share some time with you and you just being willing to share your message with us today. What else, what closing thoughts do you have for our listeners today? Any wisdom, any like insights, anything else you wish to share?
Yes, I do have one, is that we were all given by our creator an intuitive sense inside, gut, inner spirit, inner voice. I don't care what you call it. Listen to it. Listen to it. If you are hearing these deep questions inside for yourself, don't ignore it. Pay attention to it. It's a guiding north for you. And I wish more people would pay more attention to what that inner voice is sharing with you and speaking to you. And if you just not only listen, but really hear it and apply it, your life will change.
There's not a better message that we can end on than that right there. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. I'm deeply grateful for your time today, and I look forward to many more beautiful conversations with you. For everybody listening, remember, go check out the links in the bio so you can get in touch with her, follow her on all the socials, all those things. And until next time, I remind you, love everybody.